Hello, everybody. We'd like to welcome you to the September 11th, 2024 City of Mesa Planning and Zoning Board public meeting. And we're going to begin by taking a roll call. Chair Ayers, I am present. Vice Chair Pitcher.
Here.
Board Member Montez.
Here.
Board Member Blakeman.
Here.
Board Member Farnsworth.
Here.
And then Board Member Peterson and Board Member Carpenter are excused, not able to attend today. And so to begin, we thought it would be appropriate for us to begin with a moment of silence with September 11th, and we'd like to do that at this point. All right, thank you, everybody. We thought that would be something appropriate to remember this day. It's pretty critical for all of us, I'm sure. As part of the agenda, we do have a consent agenda. It's a lengthy one today, and so we'll begin with that, and this will be read into the record and acted on in one motion. This item will not be discussed individually, and we've actually got Board Member Blakeman to read that for us today.
I recommend approval of the August 28, 2024 Planning and Zoning Board meeting minutes.
All right, and that concludes the consent agenda that we have for today. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please vote. Board Member Montez, I need your verbal vote.
Yes.
All right, thank you, and I'm sure that is proved. All right, we're good to go on that item. So with that, we'll move into the rest of the agenda and turn the time over to staff for presentations. We'll move right in. There you go. All right, Emily.
Thank you, Chair and Board members. This is case ZON 23-00417 for Hard & Arrow. This request is to rezone from single residence 35 to single residence 35 with a planned area development overlay. It also includes a preliminary plat for a 23-lot single residence subdivision. The site is located on the south side of McDowell Road between Val Vista Drive and Greenfield Road. It's within the neighborhood character area with the citrus subtype. It's there to provide safe places for people to live where they can feel safe, and is characterized by large lots with single residence homes surrounded by citrus. It's also within the citrus sub-area plan, which has low density developments zoned RS35, where custom home developments are encouraged. It is currently zoned RS35 and proposed that RS35 PAD, single residence, is a permitted use in that zoning district. Here is a site photo looking south from McDowell Road. The project site is currently vacant as seen in the previous photo, and the applicant is proposing a 23-lot single-family home lot with an amenity area. Here is the landscaping plan that includes 2 rows of citrus and Chinese pistache along McDowell Road, as well as landscape tracks that are lined with citrus trees that lead down to that amenity area. The applicants are requesting a PAD overlay. The purpose of the overlay is to permit flexibility in the application of the zoning standards when it can be demonstrated that the proposed development provides equivalent or superior standards. The proposed PAD includes lots fronting on private streets, a minimum lot area of 20,000 square feet, a minimum lot width of 110 feet, and a minimum lot depth of 130 feet. Though the lot size minimums are reduced, the overall density for the site is below what is permitted in the RS35 district. The request also includes a reduction in the minimum aggregate side setbacks to 20 feet and an increase in the maximum building coverage to 40%. Based on neighborhood meetings that were held, the applicants are including additional standards that allow building height on the perimeter lots to be limited to a single-story home, and that the detached garages not be permitted in the required rear yard, which for RS35 is 30 feet. Here is the preliminary plat for Hard & Arrow. The 19-acre project site would be split into 23 single resident lots with 8 tracks for landscaping, private streets, and public utilities. The access is from McDowell Road, and the density is at 1.2 dwelling units per acre, where RS35 does allow for the 1.24. The applicants did notify property owners and HOAs in registered neighborhoods within 1,000 feet. 2 neighborhood meetings were held in 2022, as well as one in August of 2023. Topics discussed include home and lot sizes, landscaping and drainage, and like we discussed with the PAD table, they did include specific standards that came out of those neighborhood meetings. Since then, we have heard from neighbors concerning the irrigation and lot sizes as well. Overall, staff finds that the application complies with the 2040 Mesa General Plan, complies with Chapter 22 of the MZO for a PAD overlay, and meets the criteria for the subdivision regulations in Section 9-6-2. Staff recommends approval with conditions, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Emily. Is there any questions from the board for Emily?
Just one quick question. For clarity on the PAD overlay, is the restriction on the detached garages only on the perimeter lots, or is that on all lots?
That would be on all of the lots.
Anything? No? Board Member Montez, any questions for you? No? All right.
No.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and invite the, you gonna come on up, Sean? Get a presentation as well.
Hover. There we go. Do I need to push anything? There we go. Thank you. I like how that's hard to narr. Oh. Maybe that's to help me with the name. Sean Lake, 1744 South Val Vista, here on behalf of the Gardner family, who has owned this property for quite some time. As many of you know, Gardner is their longstanding Mesa family and owns quite a bit of property. And we appreciate the Gardner family working with us to develop this custom lot subdivision, which we haven't seen, quite frankly, in a while, to see a custom lot subdivision. It was interesting as we sent out notice to everybody for this project, after having neighborhood meetings and so forth, when we sent out notice for this planning commission meeting, it seemed to be more of a marketing mailer than it was a notice for a public hearing, because I got quite a few calls of people wanting to be put on the list. There's quite a desire. They liked the layout and wanted to be part of this project to build a home in this area, maybe downsize from their big home that they raised their kids in and want to downsize, assuming you can downsize onto a half-acre, three-quarter-acre lot, but I guess some people would call that downsizing. To get started, many people are familiar with the property. It's on the south side of McDowell. There's been many development proposals over the years to go on this site, from home builders like Toll Brothers, et cetera, to now where the Gardner family says, you know what, let's just develop this for custom lots, sell these custom lots off, and we think that's a good proposal. What we are proposing is is 23 homes on 20 acres, so a density of about 1.2. And as staff pointed out, the density cap in R135 is 1.24. So we're within the density cap of what R135 would be permitted in this area. One of the key features that I think in this area is that we are providing common area retention. For those people familiar with lot development in this area particularly, because I live in this area, a lot of times property owners will plat large lots and have on-lot retention. And then when people go to develop their homes, they develop these gorgeous homes with beautiful yards and do not pay attention to on-lot retention. That retention, that water goes somewhere, and that poor person at the low end of the site ends up having a real problem. And so we found that in a lot of the subdivision, even adjacent to this property around this area. So having a subdivision that has slightly smaller lots with common area retention, we think is a real value, so that this neighborhood will not have that problem. As staff pointed out, we're staying with the R135. We're well within the density of that zoning district, and we're also asking for a preliminary plat approval. Here's a copy of the plan that you've seen. It's a main access, or only access will be off of McDowell Road. It will be a gated community with a central focalized open space amenity area at the center of the project. Homes are kind of built off of, we'll call it cul-de-sacs or mini cul-de-sacs, so that you can have that low traffic lot. Just about every one of these is a good prime lot with low traffic, citrus lined along the perimeter, or along the entryway, and then out along McDowell. If you picture the Blandford subdivision directly to the, not directly, but to the east of here, the new Blandford subdivision, we, for lack of a better word, cut and paste their landscape plan. So the landscaping that you see outside of Blandford is exactly what you're going to see here. So we copied that plan so that there would be some consistency. So between Blandford and this project, there'll be a couple of subdivisions that have citrus preserved along McDowell Road. Again, the lot sizes are in that lower corner that you can see, but they range from about 20,000 square feet on upwards to 32,000 square feet based upon the configuration and geometry. There were some constraints in the site that we had to design around. Originally, and let me get to the next slide, the left slide represents what was presented at the last neighborhood meeting. The right slide represents what you're voting on now. And let me go over some of the changes. First off, the cul-de-sac size in the city's code changed. And so the city, even though we were in the middle of the process and we had worked, the city made us increase the radii or diameter of the cul-de-sacs because their code, the city's code changed. So we did do that. We also have a drainage easement along the west side or left side that was going to go down the rear of people's lots. We saw that that might cause some contention and also accessing that area, so we put that in a separate track, which caused a slight reduction in some of those lots, but effectively, they're still the same. You're still gonna have the same separation between those people's homes and the residences to the west, so we didn't see that as a detriment. Actually, might be a benefit because the home might be further away because the rear yard setback will be measured from the lot line and not the drainage tract area or property line. So it pushes everything a little bit further away from the residential to the west. So we saw that as an advantage. And then there is a sewer line that runs kind of down the center of the project that serves the projects, as I recall, east and west sewer line. We thought we could move that sewer line, but when those developments on the east and west went in and installed that sewer line, they did not do it to code. So we're running into some problems. So we had to shift around and reconfigure the lots so that we didn't move that sewer line for the benefit of the subdivisions on east and west. Those were the constraints that we had that made some slight changes. You can see the configuration didn't change. Each lot changed a little bit for the most part, not the most part. The density stayed the same. We did not add lots. We did not change anything. We just kind of addressed some city comments. So that was the difference that happened between the last neighborhood meeting. Now, at that last neighborhood meeting, we did agree, and I'm going to read these because 2 of these 4 are conditions of approval, but I want to make sure that everybody understands what we agreed to do with the neighbors. And I got to put my glasses on for this. So we agreed, and those 2 conditions are that you have, we agreed to single-story homes around the perimeter. And so that was important and a benefit to the surrounding community that they would only have single story. That's a positive as opposed to just a platted R135 where they could build anything they want. Property owner also agrees to limit the primary residence detached garage 30 feet from the rear yard. That was an issue because the person behind my home in this area just built a detached accessory structure 5 feet off the property line, and then they put an observation deck on the top and they watched me swim. So, wonderful. We are agreeing not to do that, with which a standard R135 subdivision, they don't have to agree to that. They would just plat it. And so that was a benefit to the community. We thought that we've agreed to do that as a condition. We also agreed that we'll establish deed restrictions to provide for a minimum of 3,000 square feet on the main level, which would establish a certain level of quality of homes within this project. And we also agreed to establish an architectural review committee to make sure that the architecture is of a quality that we would expect in this area. All 4 of those things we have agreed and continue to agree to live up to, 2 of which are conditions of approval in the zoning case. Here's a wall plan that kind of talks about the property and what happens, but it will be a very attractive custom lot subdivision with amenities in the center. We did remove the community pool. Sometimes those become a liability issue, insurance issue, and so we thought, let's just stick with pickleball courts and general Ramada play areas for kids, grandkids, or whatever in the center amenity area. Again, gated community, this is what it would look along McDowell Road and around the perimeter with theme walls as well. So that's a brief overview of the site. We think this is a good, excellent project that meets the standards. It meets generally all of the conditions. We are within the density of the R135. It's a good custom lot subdivision. We've tried to, as best we can, address the concerns of the neighbors. There's some private issues that I know will be raised, and I can certainly address those in response to those if I need be, but some of them are private issues that are property owner to property owner that they need to address, and we'll commit to work with them on it. We won't commit to having a solution tonight, but we'll continue to work with them as property owner to property owner. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Questions from the board?
Maybe just a few quick questions. The drainage channel on the west side of the property that's proposed and planned there, what, if any, sort of like perk testing's been done on that area? Or I guess a different question might be, as you guys are considering that flow that's gonna happen, have you anticipated any large severe storms, and if that water would pool, and what effect it might have on the neighbors immediately adjacent?
I'm looking at my engineer. So we have the retention area, which would have perk issue, they'd have to do perk tests on that, but this area has been, property's been flood irrigated
Okay.
for a
Millennium.
long, long time.
Okay.
You can see in the center of the project on the aerial that citrus really didn't grow in the center, but over here in this corner that citrus did grow, so I'm assuming that there's not an issue with perk on that. The drainage channel, that's a, am I wrong that that's a pipe, or is that an open?
It's a combination of a pipe and an open channel.
Okay.
But no perk test that to this point, they would be prior to the final plan.
No perk test at this point, but that would be final, prior to final plat.
Okay. That's it.
Board Member Montes, anything for you? No, okay.
Nope, no questions.
All right, thank you. I think we're good
Thank
for
you.
right now. Thank you. All right, with that, we'll open up public comment. And let me, can we just jump right into Zoom? We'll start there.
Yes, that sounds great, Chair Ayers. Susan Criswell submitted an online comment card to speak, and I believe she is online, so if Don can unmute her.
Are you there, Susan?
Hello,
Hi.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you could go ahead and
Oh, yes.
by stating your name and your address, and we'd appreciate it.
Sure, my name is Susan Criswell. I live at 3850 East Menlo. I live in the El Camino Dolce development that's right adjacent to this proposed development area. So my question is, we have flooding irrigation in our community, and the gate that we have to access to turn on the flooding is on an easement between El Camino Dolce and this proposed development. So I just want to know how we will continue to access that gate for our flooding. There are multiple people within the community and the surrounding areas that need to access that gate. It runs right along the back wall of El Camino Dolce. It doesn't look like they have allowed for any, access to it on the drawing.
So the board will not be able to respond to that, but what we'll do is we'll have the applicant come up afterwards to respond to you directly. Does that sound all right?
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or anything else you want to say?
No, that's the main one. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Susan, appreciate it. What's our
And
next
then
one?
Chair Ayers, we did receive another request to speak from Scott Muratello. I have not been told that he's online, but I'll give him a minute to see if we can find him in the Zoom so he
Okay.
can speak. And it doesn't appear that he is online
No.
at the moment.
All right, thank you. All right, then I'll go ahead and move it. For those that are here, would like to speak, we'll go ahead and bring you guys up. If you could begin the same thing by stating your name and your address, and then each of us, you have 3 minutes. We'd appreciate, try to stick that as much as we can as we get through the list. So the first that I do have is C. Thomas Buddy. Buddy, all right. I apologize if I butcher names.
That's okay, everybody does it. Good afternoon, lady and gentlemen. My name is Tom Buddy, and I live at 3813 East Menlo Street, which is in the El Camino Dolce area, and I've been a resident at that site for 30 years. And during that time, I've taken advantage of the flood irrigation that's available to that area and to the lots to the west along Val Vista. That irrigation water is provided by the Roosevelt Water Conservation District, and part of the system that brings water to us and to the houses to the west is a gate that is located at the southeast corner of the proposed development. And I submitted to the lady at the front a package of papers,
we have them right
pictures, which I'm going to refer to now to help reinforce what I'm saying. In picture number 1, you see an overview of the map that's been proposed by the developer. And at the bottom of it, there's a red line that goes all the way across the bottom of that. That's the pathway that's necessary for neighbors to access that valve, which is identified by the X in the bottom right-hand corner. The valve is, I don't believe, on their property, but it's in the proximity of their property. But access to it has been gained, for the most part, where the red dot is, which is at the end of the dead-end street of 38th Street. So that gives you access onto that orchard, which is now a vacant piece of land, and you then walk across it to get over to the valve, to control those valves to send the water where you need to. Picture number 2 shows you walking down that pathway, approaching the valves in that corner, which is slightly overgrown. Picture number 3 gives you a close-up view of that standpipe and valves, and the fence to the east of the area where the valve is. And if you look, the neighbors are real friendly there. They've got razor wire at the top of that fence, so they're really hospitable to whatever's going on there. I'm sure they don't want someone getting on top of the valve and climbing into their backyard. But that east end is completely blocked by a fence, reinforced by the razor wire. Picture number 4 shows the block fence that's at the north end of that area around that valve system. And picture number 5 shows the block fence that's around the south end of that area where the valve is at. So that valve is in a U-shaped canyon that's completely surrounded on the north side, the east side, and the west or south side. And the only access is from the west, which has been through this property that's proposed to be developed. And I did have a conversation with Sean the other day. Thank you, Sean. And he assures me that they have every intention of not depriving us and the people to the west of access to that valve. But my concern here is that it's great for him to make that statement, but unless it's someplace in a written obligation, he can shine me on later on and say, hey, you're a nice neighbor, but so what? I'm not doing anything for you. Picture number 6, I'll call your attention to, is what Blandford did in the housing development to the east called Hermosa Ranch. There's a valve in that area that has the same problem. When they developed Hermosa Ranch, that valve was going to be cut off from any kind of access, and it was going to become an island. And so what Blandford did is they created, as you can see, a landscaped pathway with a concrete sidewalk that gets you from the street, which is off this picture to the right, back to the valve, which is at the far back off to the left. Now, I'm not suggesting that the developer of this property needs to do that same thing, but I am suggesting that they need to do something that will give the residents of El Camino Dolce and the residents to the west along Val Vista access to this valve. If that's not taken care of, our irrigation system becomes completely useless. So what I'm asking the board to do is either make that requirement of some kind of an answer to that question a requirement for approval, or to delay approval until that is provided. And, you know, that's beyond my scope of authority to decide. That's up to you. But I'm requesting your help in holding the developer accountable for helping solve that problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buddy. Appreciate your time. Next up, I have, let's see, I'm gonna mess this one up. Justin, how do you say your last name, Justin? Peters. Oh, just couldn't read it.
Yeah,
You're good. I just didn't want to kill your name there.
my name's Justin Peterson. I live in the area. I'm the local irrigator for the area. He had a great explanation of how we need to access the box up in the southeast corner. But I'll bring up the issues with Lady Hawk. The development to the west also has 3 weir boxes, we call them, or gates, that we need access to, which is similar to his little U-shaped thing where it's got cinder block wall to the north, to the west, and it's contained. Only way you can get in there, we've always done, is there's usually a 4-foot easement along the wall to access those 3 boxes. And without that access, the irrigation is void for the subdivision to the west, which is Lady Hawk. I was here for El Camino as well because I have clients in there, but he did explain that. So I noticed they had on their diagram that they had that retention, where you asked about drawing the water out of it or whatever. So it doesn't seem like they're gonna back up the property lines quite to that wall. That may be more accessible than what he's talking about if they're going right up the property line on El Camino. But I'm just here to make sure that usually on those situations, it's 4 foot on the subdivision and it's 4 foot on the new subdivision. There's a 8-foot easement. They do the property line every 4 foot on each side so you can access those. And I didn't see anything in the plan, so I'm just here hoping that you can help out with making sure that's taken care of or we have access to those irrigation boxes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. All right, next up, I have Patrick Ryan.
My questions have been addressed by the last.
So you're good? You're sure? All right. That's easy enough. We appreciate you doing that. Sarah Vance. Come on up. I feel like it's a game show. Come on.
Hi, my name is Sarah Vance. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
I live at 3912 East Norcroft Circle. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here as the HOA president of Rosewood Estates, located just east of the area under discussion. I'm here to urge you to preserve the current zoning regulations in the Mesa Groves, also known as the Mesa Citrus Sub-Plan area. In particular, I want to emphasize the importance of maintaining the 30,000 square foot minimum lot size, which is crucial for preserving not just the character, but the history of this one-of-a-kind community. The Groves are more than just a neighborhood. They are a living testament to Mesa's agricultural heritage. For decades, this area has been defined by its vast citrus groves, large estate lots, and rural feel. These elements are part of our city's identity, and they reflect a history that stretches back to the early days of citrus farming in the valley. The 30,000 square foot minimum lot size was established to protect this legacy, ensuring that the land would remain spacious and dedicated to large lot estate-style homes that keep the rural landscape intact. Changing this zoning would be a direct threat to the preservation of that history. It would risk replacing the open green spaces that define the groves with denser, more urban-style developments that have no connection to the past. This is an area where John Deere tractors still haul fresh citrus down tree-lined streets, where citrus groves create a unique microclimate which can be 10 to 15 degrees cooler at night than the adjacent desert areas, and where the sight of rows of citrus trees and the smell of citrus blossom in the spring is not just a memory, but an everyday reality. These are traditions that would be lost if we allow smaller lots and higher density developments to take over. The citrus sub-area plan, carefully crafted by the residents, was designed to ensure that this region would remain low density and estate style in nature. That plan was not just about zoning, it was about safeguarding the rural history of this area. The 30,000 square foot minimum lot size is the foundation of that plan. It protects the open landscapes, the custom homes, and the citrus groves that define this area and give it its unique character. This isn't just about nostalgia, it's about preserving a vital connection to our city's roots. The citrus groves, which have been a part of Mesa for over 100 years, represent a significant piece of our agricultural history, now increasingly rare in the face of urban development. By protecting what remains of these once 1,000-plus acre groves and maintaining the current zoning, we honor this history and ensure that future generations can experience and appreciate this important part of Mesa's heritage. Moreover, the historical significance of this area is something that residents and visitors alike value. The groves attract people from all over the valley who come here to experience the rural charm, buy fresh citrus, and connect with a part of Mesa's past that still feels alive. Families like the Masons, who moved here from Chicago 2 years ago, and the Warwig family, who moved here from California, looked all over the valley but chose this area because it offers something truly unique. My husband's ancestors were among early founders of Mesa. He is the 5th generation to enjoy the heritage environment that reflects the beauty and history of Mesa's agricultural roots. That is something worth protecting. Once the zoning changes, the connection to this history could be lost forever. Smaller lots and denser developments would erode the sense of space and openness that has allowed the groves to retain their rural charm despite the city's growth. It would replace our historical landscape with something generic, and that loss would be felt not just by current residents, but by future generations who will no longer have access to this living history. In conclusion, I urge you to recognize the importance of preserving the history of the groves by maintaining the current zoning regulations, particularly the 30,000 square foot minimum lot size. This area is not just land, it's part of Mesa's story, and it deserves to be protected. By keeping the zoning intact, we can assure that this historical treasure continues to thrive, offering both residents and visitors a glimpse into Mesa's rich past. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mrs. Vance. Appreciate you coming here.
Chair Ayers, pardon me. I just want to make sure, I believe Board Member Montez had to leave, so is she still
Yes.
on the Zoom?
I believe she is not on the Zoom.
Okay, great. I just wanted that on record, that Board Member
Thank you.
Montez has left. Thank you.
And then we didn't get the last one that came on Zoom. I cannot remember his name. I apologize.
Scott has still not joined the Zoom.
No, okay. All right. I think that was the last one I have. We do have one more comment that was just for us to review, so we do have a few of those, so everybody knows. We also did review this document that was provided, so I want everybody to know we've kind of looked through all of these, the photographs and everything as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and invite the applicant to come up to respond to some of the public comment we've had at this point.
Chair Ayers,
Yes.
pardon, just procedurally, you need to close the public hearing prior to the applicant
Oh, that's true. I
responding.
do need to. We're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you. And invite the applicant to come up to respond.
Thank you, board members. Again, Sean Lake here on behalf of the Gardner family. Let me address those two issues. The first that was brought up is the valve issue. This is a private property issue. This is not a public utility. This is not a city easement. This is a private valve that is used to switch the irrigation water from going north-south to east-west for Dolce Vita to the south. This valve does not serve our property. We don't utilize it. It is not on our property. As you can see on the aerial photography above, it is not in the southeast corner of our property. It is actually in the northwest corner of Mr. Oak's property, and a portion of it in the northeast corner of that lot in Dolce Vita, or El Camino Dolce. Sorry, I'm thinking of gelato at Higley and Brown. So that valve is not on our property. There is not an easement on our property for that valve. Here is our Alta, and you can see along the south side of our property, there is not an easement that runs along the south side of our property to access this. Now, when Dolce Vita developed, I apologize. That's a compliment. Everybody loves the gelato. Sorry, a little commercial for Higley and Brown. As everybody can see, when that subdivision was developed to the south of it, they had this valve, and they could have put it in a front yard, they could have put it in a rear yard, they put it in a rear yard, and then these property owners, when they developed those homes, chose to wall up and restrict access. That's not a burden that should be placed upon an adjacent property owner. Now, Mr. Gardner and the Gardner family over the years have tried to be gracious and nice and say, yeah, you can use our property as long as we're farming it and access that valve as long as we're farming it. But the time has come that farming is no longer viable. The citrus, as we know in this area, has pretty much gone away. There's no real operators left to do it. And the trees, a lot of the trees are being removed. And so we've got alfalfa that we're going to try to grow on it now, but in the meantime, but access to the valve, as long as we're farming it, that's fine. But at some point, the property owners are going to need to work within the neighbors within their subdivisions, both with El Camino Dolce, with the property owner at the northwest corner of their subdivision, or Mr. Oaks at the northeast corner of the subdivision next door, to provide access through their yards to that valve. And they can say it's walled off now, but you can put a gate in a wall to access a valve. And so we're willing to work with them and maybe work with him on access through lot 14. We're not willing to commit to it now. But the problem with that is we have a struggle when they're not willing to go to their own neighbor to try to get access to their valve, and they want the city to take, this is a taking if you put a condition on it, to take from this property owner an easement or an access to access their valve that's on their property for their irrigation that we don't benefit from. Like I said, I don't want to be mean or upset, and we're willing to work with them, but I get frustrated when they're not willing to work with their own neighbors to get access to their own valve. And so that's kind of our position. We'll work with them, and if those property owners are willing to, and maybe it's the 3 or 4 property owners around that valve that can try to work together to allow access when they need to switch it from north to south, east to west, we're willing to do that. But we don't want to be the only option to get to that valve. We want to be one of the possible solutions. That's the first discussion. Like I said, no good deed goes unpunished. When Mr. Gardner was willing to let him use the farm road when he was farming, but that doesn't create an easement when you do it permissively. The second issue that was raised was about lot size and preserving 30,000 square feet. We did an assessment of all the subdivisions within the citrus area. It took Sarah quite a long time. There are 78 subdivisions in the citrus area planned. Of the 78, 50 of those subdivisions have lots less than 30,000 square feet. We've put up on here examples of various different subdivisions and outlined those in red around this site. This site's in yellow, but Hermosa Groves Estate has 24,000 square foot lots. Hermosa Grove South, 26. Estates at 32nd, which is the newest one when they developed that golf course, the old executive course, at 21,000 square feet. Mandarin Grove at 26, Day Springs at 24, Arboleda at 24, Valencia Park at 17, and Estates Grove Unit 2 of about 14. So that is, the 30,000 foot is not a hard, fast rule. Of the 78 subdivisions that are within the citrus area plan, 50 have lots less than that. And so that's not what the plan reads, but the city council does evaluate and look at it. We think a compelling reason to not do the 35,000 is so that if you take a little bit out of each lot and create common area retention so that we don't have that retention water flooding out the downstream guy in the subdivision, that's a big benefit and that's a big positive. Plus you get open space and amenities that sometimes you don't get with those just platted larger lot developments. And so we think the benefits outweigh what's going on, and that has been utilized in many subdivisions in the citrus area before. So this is not breaking the rules, but I think is more consistent with what has been approved in the area. So we think this is a good plan. This will be custom lots. These will be nice, big, beautiful homes. We still agree to those 4 conditions that I read to you at the neighborhood meeting when the neighbors said they weren't going to object. I'm not going to withdraw that along our east side for Rosewood when they came and object, because I thought nobody was going to object, but we're still going to live by our commitment at the neighborhood meeting with those 4 conditions on all sides. So we think this is a great project. It fits within the citrus area. It fits within the area. These are going to be beautiful, nice homes. It is well wanted in this area, and so we would ask your support and be happy to answer any additional questions.
All right, thank you. Is there any further questions?
I've got a question for you. On the west side, there's 3 other valves. They're on the neighboring properties as well. Is there an easement or anything on that side?
On the west side.
On the west side, you've got 3 valves.
On the west side, we have a drainage easement running down that side, and that will be able to be accessed by that existing drainage easement. So you can see that, I think it's colored brown in that plan.
So if I might just jump in and ask a supporting question. So are you clarifying that, excuse me, the secured perimeter, if you will, of the gated community will be essentially at the, call that western yellow limit, and that drainage canal will be open access for neighbors to come in and access those weir boxes on that west side, or is that drainage channel?
It'll either be
secure
open or
perimeter?
gated, and we'll work with the neighbors so that they can access that.
Okay.
Yes.
So what you're saying is really the only issue is that one in the southeast corner?
That's right.
On the southeast corner, there is no easement.
Correct.
And it's actually not on our property, and along the west side, it's a different situation.
Any other questions?
And like I said, on the southeast, on the northeast and northwest corners of their developments, where those valve boxes, I'm not saying no. I just don't want the neighbors to come and ask the city to take property from this property owner before they've even gone to try to get their own neighbors to solve the problem. This could be easily solved by asking the one neighbor in their project, or Mr. Oaks, the other neighbor, to say, hey, just cut and put a fence or put a fence in your wall, and we'll come once a month and open that valve so that all of us south of this property can continue to enjoy irrigation. But I struggle when they're not willing to do that. They're just wanting the city to impose something on this private property owner because they don't want to go talk to another property owner.
Would it be appropriate for us to ask the legal side if that's a taking kind of an issue? Is that something that we can ask?
Chair, board, easements are a matter of private contractual agreements between private parties and not something that the city would be involved in.
Yeah, not a stipulation.
It's not a stipulation we could add to this.
The other maybe question I'd ask of legal is if CAWCD is the water provider, is there any relationship or correlation between the city and CAWCD where something might need to be resolved, if you will, to relocate the valve to a more publicly accessible area? Does that make sense what I'm trying to ask?
It does. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know that that's something that staff would know either. Yes, it would be the HOA that would have to talk to them.
So valves do get moved. We've seen that. But the neighbors who benefit from the valve would have to pay for that. So that is definitely an option. RWCD, this is the water that they serve to this valve on private property owner. They just have to work with those property owners to all come together and chip in to relocate that valve, all come together to pay to put a fence in their wall. Thank you.
Anything else? Oh, I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we've actually already closed public comment, so we're good there. So we could go ahead and have more discussion about this. We could also entertain a motion if anybody would like to do that. The one thing just to remember is we have both item 3A and 4A on that motion, correct? So we got to do the plan as well.
And Chair, it's a recommendation to the City Council.
Yes. Any conversation or? No?
No, I'll make a statement. I'm very sympathetic to Ms. Vance. This exact thing happened in my backyard because we had a 20-acre plus subdivision that was related to you that is now apartments. So it's as far as a use that would be compatible. I'm more in favor of this kind of use that has, these custom kind of homes that would be at least, something that would be consistent with what the neighborhood around you. So I'm very, very sympathetic to that. I understand the issue. I'm glad that they're on the west side that you've taken care of that issue and have a gate to access those valves. Yeah, the southeast valve is a problem. Having seen and dealt with RWCD a lot, these valves do get moved. So I think that's probably the thing that at least the neighbors and you ought to talk about is how to get that moved. Thank you.
Anything from you guys? I think, so the two major issues, number one, we've got kind of the size of lots. I was going through this, and this is just my dumb math, but we've got at least, 100,000 square feet of retention, at least, right? A little more than that, okay. So, you got a significant amount of retention, and I think the idea of the PAD and kind of taking retention all in, this is a problem that we have on all of these, flood irrigated lots. It's a constant issue. So if you were to take that in, you'd have an average about 5,000 square foot that would be added in each lot. So that would mean there's only 3 of those lots that are really under the 30K, and they're right under the 30K. So I don't necessarily think that's as much as you. I think this is a good solution to a problem that we have a lot with flood irrigated lots. You've kind of hit a lot on the irrigation side. I think it is an issue. The issue that I have with it is it's a burden that shouldn't be placed on the new development. And I agree. I think that I'm hoping that there can be a lot of conversation and a lot of kind of rework. It sounds like the applicant is willing to work with them, but there needs to be a solution that comes together. And unfortunately, as a board, we're not in a position to kind of stipulate how that happens. That's not it within our purview. So with that, I would actually move that we approve these, and if everyone is good at that, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to do that. All right, so would move that as far as the recommendation for city for item 3A, ZON 23-00417, Jardinero, District 1, located south of East McDowell Road and east of North Val Vista Road, rezoned from single residence 35, RS 35, to single residence 35 with a PAD, planned area development overlay, RS 35 PAD. And this request will allow for the single residence subdivision. This is a staff recommendation as approval with conditions. And then item 4A, the companion, which is PZ 24122, Jardinero preliminary plat within District 1, located south of East McDowell Road and east of North Val Vista Drive, preliminary plat. Staff recommendation of approval with conditions, and I would move that these are approved, or recommend that they be approved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Chair Ayers?
Yeah.
Apologies, just for the record.
Yeah.
Item 3A is for recommendation.
For recommendation.
Item 4A is action by the board.
Oh, yes. So do we have to read them separately?
No, you could, I just was correcting for the
Yeah,
record.
just correcting, okay. Is there a second?
You would second.
Oh, you already second.
You second.
Oh, sure, second.
All right, we'll go ahead and vote, and, we do not have Board Member Montes. And how does that work without Board Member Montes? All right, so with all those present, we all vote yes, and so this motion passes. We appreciate everybody coming in. I know this is a tough one. We appreciate you being here. Anything else from staff?
No additional updates.
All right, so I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? All right, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, again, for being here today.